basis that we do. We're always concerned about, privacy, but I think we could fix that too. But I like looking at everything. I don't see any reason why these two can't just release the hounds and go nuts. Yes. Everybody's interested to find out what they're going to see, and I'd like to hear it myself, because maybe it's a means test on Social Security. We have to fix this because the deficit's getting a little big right now, and the bond market's starting to get a little uneasy in the 10-year. I worry about that.
Yeah. So Elon Musk is having no end of fun with all of this. America, his PAC, produced this tweet saying, quote, "The Pentagon just failed its 7th audit in a row. What? The nation's largest government agency is unable to fully account for its budget of over $824 billion. What? They don't even know where billions of taxpayers' money is going. Efficiency is coming," to which Musk retweeted with a comment, "Sounds like a job for Doge." I mean, he really looks like he's looking forward to getting into the numbers here.
I rest my case, Your Honor. Here he goes. He's just going to keep on these guys, hitting them every day to 1 billion people that are willing to listen, and the head squeezing begins. This is terrible.
Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to take a look at some of the insane, shocking spending that the government has been doing with our tax money. And then we're going to look at how Vivek is going to describe how Doge, him and Elon, will be taking all these people to task. Yes. And how they're going to do it. All right, let's get into it. And if you guys could subscribe, it'd really help me out. Thank you.
Tackling this kind of waste, fraud, abuse, bureaucratic bloat, we're going for the stuff that's basic common sense that most Americans actually agree on. And I hope we're going to actually be able to help unite the country by eliminating waste, which is something that all Americans, regardless of partisan affiliation, can get behind. And that's how Elon and I are thinking about it.
Well, that was Vivek Ramaswamy touting the new Department of Government Efficiency that he and Elon Musk will be running. Now, also known as Doge, this temporary agency will partner with the White House and Office of Management and Budget to drive structural government change from outside the government. Now, they put out their first messaging on X yesterday, writing this: "Working overtime to ensure your tax dollars will be spent wisely." So what have we been spending some of our federal funds on? Almost $550,000 went to a Russian lab to run experiments on cats' brains. What? That was spent by the National Institutes of Health. $3.7 million of funding went to a study on monkeys and gambling, another NIH fascinating project. And the State Department awarding tens of thousands of dollars for drag shows in Ecuador. Stop. And that's just the tip of the wasteful spending iceberg. Here's Senator James Langford rattling off just a few government spending projects at a House hearing last year. Watch.
Last year, the State Department did a grant to Ecuador to host 12 drag shows in Ecuador with American tax dollars. Now, may have different opinions in this room on drag shows. I'm just asking the simple question: is the best use of American tax dollars to actually fund drag shows in Ecuador with U.S. tax dollars? National Science Foundation last year did a study of butterflies in Europe. So we funded with American taxpayer dollars. Last year, there was also a NEA grant that was done to set up a display in Brooklyn for the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, by the way, is not even an American band. We had an almost, $350,000 grant to study smart toilets. Was one of the grants that we actually paid for with our federal tax dollars last year. We also had a grant that was done studying colonial Mexican soundscapes. We, last year, did a study on helmets and seatbelts in Ghana to be able to study whether seatbelts and helmets were effective for saving lives in Ghana. Can I just go ahead and answer that question for free? Seatbelts and helmets are a good idea. They save lives. Free.
Let's do a little more examples of the squander of what your money, guys, the government's money, that is your money. So let's show you a few more things of outrageousness that our tax dollars are being spent on. $100,000 to see if A sunfish is more aggressive when given gin or tequila.
Oh my gosh.
What?
$1 million to see if selfies make you happy.
What?
$1.5 million to study the mating calls of country frogs to see if they are different than city frogs. That, Cheryl, is what hardworking Americans' tax dollars are going to.
Oh, I have more. Why is the University of Mississippi spending $12 million for monkeys on meth?
Yeah.
And why did the EPA spend $620 grand for armor and night vision equipment? Somebody explain that one to me. But I'll tell you what, the biggest one that killed me was the fact that the IRS between October of 21 and 23, they've got $50 million in unpaid taxes from their own employees.
Whoa.
IRS employees owe $50 million in back taxes. I want that. I want the IRS so gutted at this point. And Elon Musk, remember what he did with Twitter? He slashed out 70% of the employees at Twitter when he
I can't wait for that
just
boulder
point
to
that out.
smash the glass house of the IRS.
But I have to tell you, the other thing, too, is why does Anthony Fauci and Rand Paul pointed this out? Why does he have a $15 million security detail?
How are they even getting monkeys to gamble? Like, what? How? I don't even understand how this is, like, they're spending all this money on this idiotic nonsense. Why do we need to know if monkeys can gamble? And why are all these things being taken place in other countries? That's just going to cost more money to get more people out there and get all these other resources out there to do these stupid, idiotic studies. There's a common theme. No one is being held accountable for anything. People are just given free reign like a credit card, government credit card, and just allowed to do whatever they want. So they made monkeys transgender in order to study HIV and trans women. How is this? What kind of planet are we on here? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why are we even... So they're giving monkeys HIV and then forcing them to become trans?
Yes.
How are... Whatever, dude. They got another study spending $400,000 on how to talk to ignorant people about climate change. Now we're going to get into the next part of the video where Vivek is going to explain how him and Elon are going to clean up all of this mess that this government is spending on with the Department of Government Efficiency, and there will be a common theme throughout that you'll notice.
They're going to be saving a lot of money and making our country stronger and better, and they'll be coming out with individual reports, but a big one toward the end. And you put those two together, it's going to be really great.
And that is President-elect Trump and on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy leading the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to identify and cut wasteful spending of taxpayer money within the federal government. As America stares over a fiscal cliff due to the $7 trillion in new spending by the Biden-Harris administration, which sent inflation up better than 20%. The national debt now standing at $36 trillion, with interest on the debt alone approaching $1 trillion. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is the co-leader of that department, the Department of Government Efficiency, Vivek Ramaswamy, with me this morning. I want to get your take on how this begins.
Sure.
What are you looking to cut right from the beginning?
So first is we want to go right in through executive action to do the failures of the executive branch that need to be addressed. Because the dirty little secret right now, Maria, is the people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones who actually run the government. It's the unelected bureaucrats in the administrative state. That was created through executive action. It's going to be fixed through executive action. Think about the Supreme Court's environment over the last several years. They've held that many of those regulations are unconstitutional at a large scale. Rescind those regulations, pull those regs back, and then that gives us the industrial logic to then downsize the size of that administrative state. And the beauty of all of this is that can be achieved just through executive action without Congress. Score some early wins, and then you look at those bigger portions of the federal budget that need to be addressed one by one. So I think that's one way to think about this is how can the president of the United States, who's been elected with a historic mandate, actually do the thing that the voters have voted for? They haven't voted for incremental change here this time, Maria. We have voted for sweeping change, and the voters actually deserve to get it. And we're focused on how to do that as early and as quickly as possible.
So President-elect Trump just said on that soundbite that you're going to make recommendations. So you're going to make recommendations in terms of where to cut after all that you've just said. Then what?
Look, we're not going to be cutting ribbons. We're going to be cutting costs. And so those recommendations are going to be on a real-time basis. But I do want to take a big step back and understand, for people to understand the scope of this problem. Over $500 billion that's spent every year right now was not even authorized by Congress in the first place. The Pentagon has just failed its 7th consecutive audit, nearly $1 trillion of budget. They can't even tell you where it goes. So I think part of this is exposing for the public the extent of that rot and waste, but then to take steps first through executive action and then laying the groundwork for broader change through legislation as well to rein in that deficit, to rein in that budget. And more crucially, Maria, I know we're talking about this in terms of efficiency, but there's something deeper going on here. This is about restoring self-governance and accountability in America as well. Elected leaders, if they make the wrong decisions, voters have a great choice. You can vote them out and remove them. Most of the people making these decisions, from healthcare to the Department of Defense, are failing on effectiveness because they have no accountability. Historically, it's been the view of many scholars to say that those people could not even be fired. Now we take a different view with the environment the Supreme Court has given us in recent years, and we're going to use that in a pretty extensive way, Maria, to move quickly.
You're going to have pushback, not just from the left. You may have pushback from those very people who are running those departments, running those agencies. They want as many people as they want in there. You're going to want to fire people. Yeah. So how are you going to deal with that? You're also perhaps looking at pushback from Congress. How are you going to deal with Congress? How are you going to deal with having Congress need to change the law?
Well, look, the beauty of this is I think we have a lot of allies in Congress who have their heart in the right place. But what we've learned is over the last 40 years, even conservatives, we've talked a big game for 40 years about cutting the federal government, about reducing the scope of the federal government. Politicians haven't been able to do it. And so Elon and I, we're not politicians. We're businessmen. We're coming at it from the outside. Sometimes if you go inside, you become native to the system. So President Trump, I applaud him for his creativity and his open-mindedness to setting this up for success in a way that hasn't happened before. But I come back to the principle. In the early months, score quick wins through executive action, show what can be done then, and then I think we will lay the groundwork for Congress to have to take meaningful steps in budget reductions for the future. A lot of these discussions we have are theoretical. I have to cut different entitlement programs or whatever. Let's start with the fact that there is massive waste, fraud, and abuse right now. Federal contractors are really exploiting the federal government. You could take haircuts across the board, and they would be no worse off for it. And it's not just about cutting cost, but increasing effectiveness from defense to healthcare. A lot of that is a failure of the administrative state itself, Maria, that rests under the executive branch. And I'm optimistic. It's part of why we've set an end date on this. Our work is done by July 4th, 2026. Unlike every other government project, we don't want this one to last. We want to go in, fix the problem, dissolve, and move on, and set an example for how our federal government should run.
I love that. But again, you are going to face pushback from within.
Sure.
And you are going to have to make this so compelling that you get the support, congressional support. So how do you do that?
Well, look, I think the public is on our side. Most of the public understands their taxpayer dollars are not being well spent. They want to hold these decision makers accountable, and they're not able to. These congressmen are responsive to the people. Many of them are quietly on our side as well. So I think the division of responsibilities, a lot of people who face two-year election cycles in political Congress, they end up looking at what's happening tomorrow. We're looking at the next 250 years. We want to give them credit for doing the right thing. Elon and I aren't in this for the credit, but I think we're going to build the consensus to make the kind of deep cuts that haven't been made for most of our history.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies, like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So, yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
You've got what has been called a deep state. You've got people who have been career bureaucrats in place right now. Didn't President Biden put in plans to ensure that you're not going to be able to fire those people at all? How do you get around that? And, I asked Joni Ernst, are you for term limits? She says, yes, I am for term limits, as long as the people around me are also for term limits. That's not in place right now. So how do you get rid of those people who are dug in?
Well, a lot of what's happened is President Biden has made a lot of changes trying to entrench the administrative state. The Supreme Court has slapped them on the wrist numerous times. So we're working with a legal landscape here that is historic. You think about a president of the United States like Donald Trump, elected with the mandate he's been given, both chambers of Congress belonging to Republicans, a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court. Maria, if we don't downsize the federal government now, it's never going to happen in the future as well. So this is a historic opportunity. we're not actually going to squander this. But I think part of the key is to move quickly, to move effectively. I think that mass deregulation that I talked about earlier, that gives us the industrial logic to then make cuts to that bureaucracy, and moving quickly is our objective.
Have you thought about moving some of these departments or agencies out of Washington?
It's funny you bring up this point. Yes is the answer, but here's why. They'll say, well, what happens to the people who live in Washington, D.C.? Here's the dirty little secret in the federal bureaucracy today. Most people don't even show up to work. So if you require most of those federal bureaucrats to just say, like normal working Americans, you come to work 5 days a week, a lot of them won't want to do that. And by the way, that creates a logic for many of those agencies being outside of D.C. in the first place. So these are, again, examples. It's a great point you just brought up.
So would you
sweeping
move,
changes we're able to make quickly.
You could move the energy department to Texas or to Pennsylvania. You could move agriculture somewhere else. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, look, I think that, yes, absolutely. But I think even bigger picture than that, many of these agencies should be downsized wherever they are. And for whatever does remain, move many of them out to be where they're more accountable to the people. And by the way, if you have many voluntary reductions in force of the workforce in the federal government along the way, great. That's a good side effect of those policies as well. And so our goal is not to be cruel, by the way, to the individual federal employees. Most of them, I do want to say this, are individually good people, and we want to be compassionate and generous in how we handle this transition. But the real issue is there's just too many of them. We don't need 4 million, and we shouldn't have 4 million civil servants who can't be or aren't even elected or can't be removed from their positions. It's anti-democratic.
Real quick, we got to jump, but when you look from 30,000 feet, I know you're just getting into this now. Which agency or department is the most bloated, would you say?
It's a tough competition. It's across the administrative state. I mean, President Trump's talked extensively about areas like the Department of Education. Obviously, those kinds of agencies shouldn't even exist and should be returned to the states. But it's a culture, Maria, that's pervaded the entire federal government of hiring people who have no accountability to everyday Americans. And I think that's what's going to change when you take this new effort at DOGE, at the Department of Government Efficiency. It's about efficiency as much as it is about restoring accountability. And this time, actions are going to speak louder than words. And I'm excited to get started in January.
I love all of this, Vivek. I really do. But wow, what a year and a half you've had. Yeah. As we go, a little self-reflection from you. What a year and a half you've had.
I mean, what a journey it's been. I'm incredibly grateful to this country. I mean, I was 37 years old when I became the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president. I've lived the American dream. It's only possible in this country.
That's right.
And our goal, and Elon Musk, take him as somebody who's an immigrant to this country, came from nothing, became the most successful capitalist in history. We want to work together to pass that American dream on to our kids. That's what motivates us, and I think we're going to do it.
Accountability. It's that simple. Holding these people accountable. Asking them what they're spending on. That's it. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I'm Modern Menace. See you on the next one. Peace.